Hard hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
Hey, Bobby Manning here. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the Garden Report, and welcome back in by popular demand, Jrue Carter.
Whoa, popular demand, Bobby?
You didn't see the tweet? There was a tweet like a week or two ago. They were like, you got to get Jrue on the Garden Report. I was like, he's been on a million times.
Yeah, we go way back to Syracuse, but I'm glad to be back on. Stuff is happening, man. We've actually got, not to like commandeer this for my own plug, but make sure you're watching the off season. We have another show coming up at 4 Eastern today, Wednesday. And if you miss it, you can catch the replay on our YouTube and social channels. So a lot to discuss right now.
Yeah, those have been great. I think we're all trying to go through it. I loved was it on there? I forget if it was on there or NBC. Scal was like, they're never trading White. Not this year, not 5 years from now.
That was on
like,
our
right.
show. Yeah, the off season.
Derek's a Celtic for life here. And, that stuff came in past the Jaylen reports and the Derek reports. Who knows where that'll go down the line. But it looks like for now, they're building around Jaylen, Jayson, Pritchard, and White. Yeah. So it's been a weird offseason. We'll get to a lot of that stuff, but we got to talk about the big news, and that's Kenneth Lofton joining the Celtics Summer League team.
Damn right. Summer League Hall of Fame, baby. Kenny, go get yourself 25 a night in Vegas.
So we know about like 10 of the names that are going to be on the Summer League team. It sounds like Hugo Gonzalez is going to be on there in some capacity. And then rookies, Jordan Walsh. So we'll get to that later in the show, but obviously everyone's interested in the Lillard stuff here. The Athletic reporting that the Celtics, Warriors, and Lakers could be in the mix for Lillard here, and I love it. I think it makes a lot of sense. I was intrigued last time they were connected to him, and I think there was some legitimacy to that pursuit last time. It would have been a more difficult addition then. It probably would have required Jaylen going out the door, but now, given that the Bucks waived him yesterday and stretched his contract, they're paying for him effectively here, and he has the chance, and I know that was in the reporting there too, that it's a unique opportunity for him to get paid by Milwaukee and then just focus on the basketball fit here going forward. And when I think about these three teams, the Lakers are trying to win now with LeBron, Luka. Lillard's probably out for most of the season. They're trying to find a center. I don't think this makes a ton of sense for them. The Warriors, it makes a little more sense.
Real quick, so are we, for the record. So are the Celtics looking for a center.
True. Very true. But, and we'll discuss it in a little bit. I feel like this year is becoming less pertinent than the year after that when Tatum comes back. So I think compared to the Warriors, compared to the Lakers, there's a stronger case for bringing in a guy who's going to be out for most, if not all of this season, than two teams that are trying to make the most of LeBron's little time that he has left and Steph Curry's remaining time in his career. And those are expensive teams too. And again, Celtics are too, but I feel like this is a good situation for him to rehab for a year alongside Tatum, get back on his feet the following year, have the Bucks pay for it. And all of a sudden you're building around Lillard, Brown, and Tatum for at least the short term following this upcoming season.
Yeah. I guess I'm a little more lukewarm on it, Bobby.
Okay.
Because, if you think about, let's just say if Lillard does come in, and you mentioned how he and Tatum could rehab together and, maybe miss the entire season. This is kind of the gap year for the Celtics. If you look ahead to the 26-27 season and you've got Tatum, Brown, White, Pritchard, fingers crossed, Hauser still on the team. I don't think the Celtics are going to move him, but let's just say he's on the team. And then you throw Lillard in there. I don't know about the fit. I'm not sure I love it. And at that point, like Damian Lillard, we talk about Jayson Tatum. I think we all expect him to come back and be really good, be Jayson Tatum again. He's in his mid to late 20s. Damian Lillard's in his mid 30s. So it kind of remains to be seen how effective he is post Achilles. And that is even before you get into how he'll fit with the current roster. I think you could look at it one of two ways. Number one, the Celtics have really good defenders everywhere, specifically with those guys I mentioned, White, Brown, and Tatum, so you can kind of protect Lillard on that side, almost like the Hawks have done with Trae Young, with surrounding him with really good perimeter defense and a couple of bigs to protect the rim, and you can kind of mitigate his limitations on that side. So you can look at it that way, or you could look at it, kind of the way I'm thinking about it, which is our offense is going to be pretty good already. Do we need to bring in, a defensive liability who's going to need the ball a lot when, we have three pretty ball dominant players in the first place? And I think this season we're going to see Derek White take on a lot more of that role and prove that he's really effective in it. That's something I think, I have wanted to see more, and I think a lot of Celtics fans feel the same way, is Derek White getting more opportunities handling the ball. For me, if we're going to bring in Lillard and take this gap year, it would have to be on a pretty team-friendly contract. So that's kind of how I look at that. But with the whole news, it's kind of a throwback, right? The wave and stretch. We haven't seen that in a while.
Who was the last wave
brought
and
up
stretch?
It's a possibility for KP, and that obviously didn't happen. But I feel like we haven't seen the stretch in a long time.
Did Blake get stretched by the Pistons? That's the one that comes to mind. I don't remember. They might have just waived him and taken the hits in those 2 years he had left when they got rid of him. The last wave and stretch. I mean, it happens all the time with small contracts.
Yeah, right.
Like they'll just sprinkle the 90,000 over a bunch of years or whatever those minimum guys make. Sometimes they'll put them out over like 7 years, but the last significant wave and stretch, I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Hit us in the comments
at one point.
Yeah, a good example of the wave and stretch.
Let us know if you can remember one. I don't think it was Blake, but that's the name that comes to mind. On Bobby Bonilla Day, I did hear that. It's not going to be quite that long. I think it's 5 years here for Lillard, where he's going to make. And let's spell it out: $22 million a year for the next 5 years for Lillard. Bucks are going to pick that up. I think there's probably at most this offseason a full mid-level for him. But again, is a team that has a full mid-level going to do that for a guy who's not going to play this year? I doubt it. I think Miami could probably offer that without checking. And that was the first team that came to mind, right?
Yeah.
Like he was interested in going there. That's where he wanted to live. That was when Jimmy Butler was there and they looked more like contenders. So obviously with his name not being on the list this time around, or their name not being on the list, I think that's probably in the past. But they could definitely pay him the most now or next year potentially. And that's my question is he going to sign now and just get in the door on some team and start connecting with teammates and rehabbing in that team's facility and all that? Or is he going to wait till next summer when there's probably more cap space around the league, when there's probably more clarity on where every team's going to be? And that's the big question with the Celtics right now is where are they going to be a year from now? Because we'll get to all the moves they've made in a second here. But I don't see a ton more flexibility for them next season unless they end up moving one of those core pieces. They're still pretty expensive. They're still building around 2 supermax guys. They still, as you mentioned, Jrue, don't have a long-term reliable center at the moment. So in terms of going on to a team late in his career and having a ready-made chance to win, the Celtics are up there among the teams he could potentially join here. But there might be more clarity for him next summer in terms of, all right, where am I going that's going to give me the best chance to win, and what kind of contract do I need to take to set that up?
And the other factor here is, everyone's favorite talking point of the offseason, which is that the East is wide open. And we'll see if that stays true heading into next season. I think, you're probably right about having a better idea going into next year than we do now. It's kind of seeing where the chips fall. And who knows what's going to happen in the Eastern Conference this year. Like you might see young ascending teams take a huge leap, like the Magic or the Pistons or maybe the Hawks, and all of a sudden going into next season.
I love the Hawks this year.
Yeah, they've had an amazing offseason. Give a lot of credit to their new GM, Ansi, I think is his name. He has done a magnificent job. And one of the best things to do if you're a new executive is just call up the Pelicans and see if you can tweak them. And they have managed to do that now 2 years in a row with 2 different front offices for both teams. But, the East being wide open, it's a fun talking point, and you can just say it if you need something to say. But has there been a star in the NBA who actually took that into account and went to an Eastern Conference team to avoid the West? I feel like the answer is no, and that's how we got here with the West being so much better. Like, maybe LeBron back in the day when he was leaving Miami, but he was already,
that's what I was going to say.
But he was already in the East,
Mm-hmm.
And then he stayed with the Lakers now for 8 years, which is crazy to say that this will be year 8 for him there. But he stayed with the Lakers. Kevin Durant wanted to go to a Western Conference team, as far as we know. Now he's with the Rockets. Like, we really haven't seen a star take that into account. And maybe Lillard would be the guy to do that, to stay in the Eastern Conference.
It's so weird how everyone's been. Is it the time zones or those? I do like West Coast time, but
yeah,
I don't know why.
But I don't know. Maybe it's just like, they see a more attractive situation, a better roster, and so they end up going to the Western Conference because there are more of those in the West than the East. I don't know, but if I were Damian Lillard, why would I want any part of the West right now?
Definitely not. I don't see the Lakers happening. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know what their plan is. This whole LeBron situation is so strange right now, with him having a foot in and a foot out, it seems like, in terms of his commitment there. Maybe that's how they're feeling about him. It could be the other way around. But I don't see that happening for that reason, even with Luka there. Warriors again, and we can get to Horford in just a second here. But the last thing I'll say about Lillard, I actually do like the basketball fit here. And I liked it last time around that we had this discussion. And the biggest thing to me, Jrue, is think of how they use Tatum, where he's bouncing around screens, he's pulling up for threes, he's trying to draw the defense up. Lillard's the king of that. I don't think, other than Curry maybe, and Curry plays more off the ball, there's a better guy at pressuring the defense with long-range threes around screens. And that can get Tatum in some different positions. You mentioned White. I think he's good playing on and off the ball. I think Lillard could play on and off the ball for this team. So I don't think he necessarily needs to be a central part of their offense, but he can be. And we'll see where he's at that age, coming off an injury. You have no idea, obviously, the combination of those two. I think everyone forgets with the ACL tear, too, that he had the blood clot situation as well, which was really scary there right before he went down with the Achilles. So he's gone through a lot over the last year, and next season he'll be 35. The season he comes back, he'll be 36. So that's the late stages of your career. Last year, I feel like he was generally who he's been offensively, but the defense is concerning there and was a big reason the Bucks struggled. So there's pros and cons to the basketball fit, but all I'll say to that is if he's going to be on a minimum, if he's going to be even on a mid-level here, and I think that's probably the most the Celtics can do now at the moment is clear out a little more cap, sign him to a mid-level for $5-6 million, and I don't know, would that be 2 or 3 years? I don't know if that's enticing enough for him, but if he would do that, I'm super intrigued by it. And obviously the most fun part about it is that he and Tatum are going through the same situation here and can support themselves. So that, if I remember correctly too, they seem to have a good relationship, don't they? You'll see them chatting after games. And I think him and Jaylen as well have a pretty good relationship. So as uncompelling as the Celtics roster might be around those guys at this point, those two could play a role in recruiting him here.
Wait a minute, Bobby. You said just clear out some cap and then you can get Damian Lillard. How are the Celtics going to do that is the question.
Well,
like the Celtics, if they end up, actually adding the guys who have been reported, right? Minot and Garza, they're back over the second apron. So the whole idea of getting rid of Holiday and Porzingis was to get under the second apron. And now they're back over. And I understand you got to fill out the roster somehow, but what does that mean? Does that mean the Celtics can't keep Simons? Are they going to get rid of George Niang? Is my worst nightmare going to come true and Sam Hauser's going to be on the way out? I don't know what that's going to look like.
Let's get to some of the changes that have happened and some of the more they'll surely follow because of what you just said right there. But first, I want to give a shout out to Prize Picks. And right now, still a great time to go over and play Prize Picks. There was a big women's basketball game last night. I was interested in watching that, even though Caitlin Clark was out. When she's back, I think that's who everyone will be waiting to watch now that the men are done playing. And this is a great opportunity for you to have more action on the line, and whether it's the basketball or the baseball, which is going on every day. All the stars are out on the baseball field, whether Judge or Ohtani. And the best part about this, especially in the summertime, is you can cross sports here. So you can make a daily fantasy team with Caitlin Clark and Aaron Judge and go more or less on their projections. And that's all you do over here on Prize Picks is pick more or less on 2 or more player projections for players, and you have your team That's how they've made daily fantasy sports accessible, fun, and you can win up to 2,000 times your cash over there by making those picks and debating them with your friends and all that. It's the best part of Prize Picks, and all kinds of great promos going on as well. Taco Tuesday, where you have great player projection discounts, as well as Flex Friday, where you can hit the square there. And if one of your lineups isn't perfect, you can still cash out over there. So all those promos are going out all the time. They're always doing free squares too. Love that during the basketball playoffs that were going on just a month ago or so. And right now, if you head over there and use the code CLNS, play $5, get $50 instantly over there when you play your first lineup. That's $5 to get $50 instantly over on Prize Picks with the code CLNS. That's Prize Picks. Download it today and run your game. So where should we start here, Jrue, with this roster and all the changes that have gone on? Kornet's out the door. It feels like Al Horford could follow here in the near future. They traded Porzingis. They traded Jrue Holiday. We knew a lot of this stuff was coming, but still pretty shocking to take it all in a week or two later after a lot of these changes happen here. Which one to you just hit you the hardest, being around this team and getting a call of these guys?
Kornet is the one, and he.
I knew you were gonna say that.
that was actually a passive loss where the Celtics didn't even have to make a move to lose him. He left for San Antonio. I guess, Bobby, that's because, as we've talked throughout this offseason now, which is a month and a half old, Porzingis and Holiday were the two most obvious candidates to be on the way out, right? With the money they make and the age and the injury history for Porzingis, it just made sense. And I actually thought the Celtics did a terrific job with the return in both of those trades, considering everyone kind of knew those were the two guys who were most likely to be moved. And it wasn't as simple as pressing a button and saying, all right, Holiday and Porzingis, let's get rid of their salaries and get some good return for them. You need to find a dance partner, and Brad Stevens in the front office did a really good job doing that, I thought. So it's obviously a bummer. Like, Jrue Holiday is one of the classiest dudes I've ever been around, who meant a ton to the championship team in 24. Kristaps Porzingis is like a 7'3" walking smile for not only himself, but everybody around him. Like, the guy is just filled with joy.
Who are we going to get quotes from now?
I mean, he's gone, and now Luke's gone. So, like, where are the jokes going to come from? Where's the joy going to come from? That's the question.
And what do they have at center? That's from a basketball standpoint, I love all that stuff too. I like the jokes and the quotes and all that. I went back and watched his video last night, the Derek White one.
Which one?
The one where he was campaigning for the Tommy Award.
Yeah. Oh, that was so good. It was so funny. And now, unfortunately, he's gone. I think that's part of the reason why this one, hits so close to home, I guess, is what you get from Luke from a personality perspective, and kind of being like the class clown in a way, who's really smart. But also just, I know the Celtics weren't his first team, and he had been around the league a little bit before he got to Boston, but he really became a bona fide NBA player with the Celtics. He found his role. He totally remade his game with the Celtics, and, give the player development staff a ton of credit for that, and the sports science staff as he kind of reshaped his body. It was just an awesome Celtics story, and he was an awesome Celtics player. So it hurts to see him go, but at the same time, you got to be happy for the guy, because, I've heard he took a pretty significant pay cut to stay with the Celtics last year when other teams wanted to poach him, and came back, had his best season. I thought he was our most improved player, even more so than Pritchard. Because I think Pritchard took advantage of new role and
minutes,
and minutes, and he kind of did what I think we've always hoped for him to do in an extended role. Kornet, everything was just like, is this guy going to even be in the league? Is he a two-way guy? And all of a sudden, he's a huge contributor for us, and even in the playoffs, he was like that. You'll never forget the Game 5 against the Knicks where he turned into Bill Russell for a night. So I'll miss
his
Luke
last
a lot.
home game.
Yeah, I'll miss Luke a lot, and I'm thrilled for him getting this money, but I wish it were coming from the Celtics.
Yeah, and I thought it made sense to sign him to a contract like this. If they could have carved out some additional money, they had his bird rights. But after trading Holiday, I'm sure they explored moving Simons again and creating some additional flexibility. But even I looked around the league at teams that would want Simons, and I think it makes sense logically, given the fact that Portland ended up trading him here and not in another deal, that there just wasn't much out there for him. And that'll still be a question going forward, what they can do with him. They might have to just take him into the year and see if he can increase his value with the minutes he'll get there. Because I think that would have been the most direct route to clearing out the space to re-sign Kornet. You could have traded Hauser, but I don't think they wanted to do that just for cap relief. I think a guy on a 4-year deal with $10 million a year doing what he does is way too valuable to just get rid of.
Let me just say this, Bobby, not to cut you off, but I need to just say this because I know I'm biased because Sam Hauser is like my best friend on the team, and I like hanging out with him. He's a great guy. But Sam Hauser at $10 million a year in the current cap climate with what he gives you is a really good value. You don't just trade him so your trade machine is easier. You can click that name and be like, yay, now look who we have. I can get whoever. Just stop. I don't think the Celtics are trading Sam Hauser. I really don't. I'm not going to be as definitive as Scal saying Derek White is a Celtic for life because I could always be wrong on this. I could be totally misreading the situation. But if you're looking to take the team down and get under the apron or the tax or whatever and still want to compete, Sam Hauser's the perfect guy for that. It's not making $60 million a year. So enough with the Sam Hauser talk. If the Celtics want to make moves to take their payroll down, you traded for the guy earlier. It's Anthony Simons. Sorry, I'm really excited to watch him play in a Celtics uniform, and I'm a big fan of his game. But if the Celtics are looking to get under the tax, we're not talking about the apron. I'm talking about the tax period to reset the repeater. He's the guy. It's not Sam Hauser.
Yeah, and when I see Duncan Robinson moving to Detroit for the money he got, and who did the Hawks end up signing? Luke Kornet. He got a decent amount of money too. I can't imagine that those teams wouldn't have wanted Hauser. I don't think the Celtics would have had to attach picks to move off that money, and I don't know what they would have gotten back necessarily. Yeah, I mean, that was the question, right? Are you going to have to trade picks to move salary? And I don't think that would have been the case with them. I think those teams.
No, how dare you even insinuate that? How dare you?
No, I'm just wondering.
$10 million.
I'm wondering reasons that they wouldn't have moved him for the cap relief that they're looking for here. They clearly value him, and I think it's the same case as White, Brown, all the different discussions we've had here. Is if a team gave them a significant offer for Hauser, they would have entertained it. They maybe would have even done it. So I think that's where they're at with him. Not that he's on like the White Brown level here, but I think they're going to have to be swayed to move off a guy like that. So I'd actually put him in the core alongside Pritchard and some of those other guys there and say that he's pretty safe at this point. But can you move Niang? Can you move Simons, especially at $27 million? I know it's expiring, but who's excited to take that on right now, especially when every team has a guard around the league? So I know they don't want to attach picks to move off some money here, but could you have traded Niang into someone's exception with a couple seconds? Yeah, I know you don't want to do a first there, which would have just been absurd, but you didn't move a first to get off Porzingis. You got the Hawks to do it for you. So maybe you could look at it as one first to move off both of those guys and keep Kornet. Because my biggest question now, Jrue, is what are they doing at center? It looks like Horford's about to walk out the door. We'll talk about that in a second here. Porzingis is gone. I like Keita, but they didn't play him late in the year or in the playoffs. They signed Luka Garza, who's mostly been a G League, NBA borderline player at this point in his career. Center's such a hard position to find talent, and this team was just overloaded at that position where you had three guys that could start playoff games for you. And now to lose all three of them potentially here, not have a great fallback option, not have tremendous flexibility to add another guy. This position to me is more important than almost any in the sport because you still have to play a role defensively. You still have to do all the things that the Celtics want their centers to do offensively. And Luke was great at that. And Horford obviously had great chemistry with these guys. I don't know how they're going to fill this position long term. And that to me was the biggest reason. Maybe you make some tough decisions to try to clear out some money for Kornet here because he reached a starting caliber level last year. This deal isn't really enormous. It's Hauser's money right here, $10 million. I would have found a way to do this. I really would have. Not just because I love him and, I'm his biggest advocate and all that. If you're the biggest Hauser advocate, I'm the biggest Kornet advocate. I think he's a tremendous player. And you look at some of these stats that are flowing around Jrue. He was like 4th in rim protection in terms of like field goal percentage against in the restricted zone, up there with like Chet and Wembanyama, who he's going to go play with, by the way. He was, one of the better finishers in the league, top 20 in offensive rebounds, despite being the 3rd string center on this team. There's so many stats you can throw around intangibly with him that show you how great of a player he is. I even saw one last night that blew me away. He was per minute the league leader in potential assists, I believe. 99th percentile for a potential assist per minute. And I know that's just like a very obscure stat, but it shows the kind of subtle things he did that made this team much better. And then the big one last year was obviously him and Tatum's pick and roll efficiency, which was one of the best in the league up there with like Jokic and Murray. So this guy didn't fill the stat sheet in a traditional sense, but the way he made other players around him better, I thought made him elite in his role, especially with some of the, stat sheet stuff he actually started doing this year.
I'm with you. I think 4 years, 41 is actually really good value for him. And, obviously the Celtics are a bad example for this, but if I were a fan of another team and they doubled this contract, I would still be like, okay, I'm fine with that for Luke Kornet because of all the stuff you just said. Like his advanced numbers are really good. And if you watch him play, it makes sense. The ball is not sticky in his hands at all. He moves it. He used to be a stretch 5 where he would shoot it if he were wide open. Now he treats the thing like a hot potato and gets off of it as fast as he can. And again, that's just such a credit to him, his smarts, his basketball IQ, the work he's put in the gym to change himself from like he's basically completely moved from one end of the spectrum to the other, where if this is a stretch 5 and this is a rim running big who protects the rim a little bit, he's gone from here to here. And I don't know how many players you can say in NBA history who have actually done that. Brook Lopez has really changed his game from like a traditional back to the basket, run your offense through him, big man, to a 3-and-D center. Which, by the way, if I were the Bucks, I'm thinking, why didn't I just bring back Brook Lopez at $8 million a year instead of waving and stretching Lillard and then signing Miles Turner for $26 million a year or whatever? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But anyway, Luke Kornet, the way he's changed his game, he's turned himself into a super valuable player. He and Wembanyama together are going to be, I think, incredible, and I'm really excited to watch that. And the Spurs are going to be good, dude. Like, they are going to be good. It's just a bummer for the Celtics when, Kornet this season, we all know here in the Celtics bubble how good Luke Kornet was last year. And I think people around the NBA really like him. Like I said, he turned down a much bigger offer to come back to the Celtics last season. People around the league like him, especially now that as the Celtics have had such success for the last decade, their people are all over the league, right? In the front offices and coaching staffs everywhere. But to me, like, Luke Kornet was still undervalued from a league-wide perspective. That could have changed this season with the Celtics. He would have been the starting center. He could have had a Pritchard-esque breakout this season. And if he had played, 30, 35 minutes a game for this team. So it's just a bummer, but it's the reality. And like, I go back to, I mentioned that off-season show we're doing on NBC Sports Boston. There's another plug for you. Like, we go back to the start of the year and it's me, Chris Forsberg, Kevin O'Connor, and we're sitting around being like, this is going to suck. This is going to be painful. They're $20 million over the second apron. Tatum's out for the year. They have to do something. They're not going to bring this roster back. It'll look different. And you're like, okay, I'm ready. And of course you're just not. You're not ready. You're never ready for
get ready
to happen until it actually happens. And the whole thing just blows, mate. That's just, it is what it is. The whole thing just blows. And the Kornet one, I think, hurts the most right now.
For now, and just wait. It looks like tonight, maybe over the next couple of days here, Al Horford might sign with the Warriors, which it was unimaginable. You felt like at this point in his career, he's probably here and going to retire with the Celtics. And, talking to some people around him over the last couple of weeks, I felt like that was still something he wanted to do in his career, like being in Boston, family, all that. So I'm starting to think of who would he possibly consider leaving the Celtics for here. And New York was floating around. That's close, right? Not too far from Boston. Atlanta, finish where he started, still has a home down there, all that. I don't think that would have been too crazy of a move. This isn't something I pictured from a basketball standpoint, maybe, but going all the way out west, San Francisco, the team that beat him in the 2022 finals. There's a lot of reason that this one is pretty bizarre, but you could tell after, and I was there in the locker room, Jrue, the night Tatum went down. The emotion on his face was pretty stark. And it was unlike anything I really ever seen from him before. After the season, he's talking about making some tough decisions with his family. I didn't know if that meant retirement or leaving Boston. And clearly it meant mentally preparing to possibly leave this team if, whatever reason, maybe it's the contract, maybe it's the ability to win at this point in his career. It could be any number of reasons that it looks like he's going in this direction here. And this one, again, stunning. Champion now, long awaited. He was the center for that playoff run. He's really been this team's starting center through Porzingis' sparse availability over the last handful of years here. Yeah. And so I wonder what led them to this point here with him. Is it the fact that they're going in another direction this season, as it clearly looks like? Do they not view him as being, we'll see what the contract ends up being here, but if it's like 3 years, do they not view that as being his window? Because I think he plans to play for a long time, even beyond this season. So again, this is another one I look at it and say, would it have been worth the price of stability? Would it have been worth the price of this guy continuing to play starting minutes for you at center and keeping things afloat here? Clearly, it didn't seem like they thought that was the case, if this is the direction it's going to go in here. Because again, I think just knowing him, would be really hard pressed to make this decision and leave Boston. And it looks like that's where this thing is headed. And I was shocked the first time when he left Boston for Philadelphia. That was obviously like $130 million contract and hard to refuse at that time. But we'll see what this ends up being here. And I like his fit in Golden State. I think he's a really nice fit on that team from a basketball standpoint. But wow, like, you knew they could lose Porzingis this offseason. You knew Luke might end up getting a big deal out there, and he did. You thought Horford would be back. And the fact that he's on the precipice of leaving here, I think, is probably the biggest shock of all.
Yeah, I'm with you. It seemed like a situation where he would finish his career with the Celtics, like for real this time. Even if you thought that last time, it seemed like this was going to be the one. I mean, even, after the championship, Bobby, we were thinking, is he just going to ride off into the sunset as a champ and not even come back? And now it's like he's going to switch teams. The Lakers
clearly views himself as having a lot of time left in his career. This isn't just like a 1-year ride out in San Francisco kind of thing. I think he views himself being part of this Steph, Draymond core for a couple more years there.
Yeah. So, and he's kind of matches their timeline, and more power to him if he sees that for his career, like a few more years after this one. Good for him. He's still an effective player. But it is surprising. I think the crazy thing is maybe the best basketball fit, the team that could use him the most, would be the Lakers. But I think that would be a bridge too far. I don't think Al would join the Lakers with his.
That one feels like a leverage play for me. And the interesting thing here too is the Warriors are still trying to figure out this Kuminga situation. They're tight against the second, so like you can build up some hope that maybe some things fall apart here, or he has a change of heart or cold feet and ends up coming back. I don't see it at this point, but this again, surprise. I can't believe it, Drew. And we're gonna keep talking about all the things that have changed here. 50 days ago, I think 50 days ago, as I was counted out, it's the start of that Knicks series. Everyone thinks that Boston's going to win it. Everyone still looks at them as, unless something goes wildly wrong, the title favorites. No one's thinking about Al leaving. No one's even thinking about major changes with this team. And you're still going to have Tatum and Brown core carrying you forward, regardless of what happens. And then over the next 2 weeks, you lose Tatum. You lose those first 2 games. You exit the playoffs in pretty devastating fashion. And then all these changes to this team. And I remember just 50 days ago thinking, how could someone beat this team? How could someone, like, it just looks so improbable that someone's going to beat this team 4 times with all the great things they have and the roster they've built and all of that. They're probably going to be in the mix for years to come here, about as good as anyone. And then I'm stacking it up last night. I'm looking at all the moves people have made around the league, and I'm like, are they top 10? No. Are they top 15? Probably not. I got all the way down to like 18th to 21st in the league with where this roster's at right now. just where it stands. And that's just stunning because they looked like they were in a different universe as a team 50 days ago. And now they're just another team. And that's not the worst thing. I've tried it, for the people who are freaking out, you still have Brown, you still have Tatum, you still have White. That's a pretty good core comparatively to the league. Like, you're not in much different of a boat than anyone else. But man, did you come back down to earth over the last 2 months here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I look at it going into this season, Bobby. I still think the team is going to be pretty good. I would still take the Celtics to finish in the top 6 in the East. Would you?
Not right now. They need a center.
The front court is tough. It is tough.
Yeah.
But I get excited about thinking about Brown having
Well, that's what bums
season.
me out. I was excited about him getting the chance to lead this team through this year. And that was a big reason I wanted them to try to keep Porzingis, because they obviously had great chemistry, right? And we can talk about Kristaps for a second here while we're on that topic. They obviously didn't love where he was at, I'd have to imagine, given the illness, given the sparse availability, expiring contract, all that. And they found a deal that got off $20 million, which, like you said, that was always going to be a challenge. And they got the Hawks to give up the pick there. So it's a good trade money-wise, but you lost a really good player. And now that you're out of front court options, that just makes it so hard on Jaylen, I feel like, White this year, for them to try to lead this team. It was already a tough situation without Tatum. To not have a big man to set them up and be an outlet on the offensive end, it's tough.
Well, there's got to be the Celtics just have to make a move. There's got to be a move. And like we discussed, it's easy to say, just shed some salary, get under the second apron. You still have to make tough decisions in order to do that. Because as it stands now, doing the cap sheet math, if all these moves go through, they're still over it by like a few $100,000, which is amazing to say, Bobby, because think about all the changes we've laid out and how wild it is, how different this team will look. They're still over it. I mean, it's impossible. It is impossible to build a cost-efficient roster when you've got $60 million tied up in a guy who's probably not going to play at all. It's just impossible. And then you have another max player, and then White making $30 million or so. Right there, like, you're pretty close to the cap already. The cap is what, in the 180 million range, and the Celtics are right there. So, it is a bummer. It's all worth it because they won in 2024. It's all worth it.
That's gonna get people through for, if you remember, 2008 got fans through for 16 years or whatever it was. So
but think about it. Like, after 08. The Celtics, I think if they didn't have any injuries to KG or Perk, they could have ripped off 3 in a row. And nowadays with the new CBA, are we ever going to see that? I mean, like, we've had 7 different champions in 7 years. The Thunder seem as well positioned as anybody to, put together a mini dynasty here. But we said the same thing about the Celtics last year. Maybe that was naive because like this huge bill was coming. But even though the Thunder are like entirely homegrown outside of Caruso and Hartenstein, the bill's coming for them too. And I wonder if this is really what the NBA wants, is teams having a window of like 3-4 years as a championship contender before they have to take it down to the studs like the Celtics are doing.
It hasn't been fun, and so many players have moved around the league that you wouldn't have expected. Miles Turner, and the Pacers obviously had a Celtics-like situation with the Halliburton injury.
Shocker. That was a shocker. I remember when I was filming more of those car commercials for 24 Auto Group.
We've been seeing them left and right.
Between takes, I looked down. I'm like, wait, what? They stretched Lillard and Turner?
We were with Gonzalez and the whole rookie crew over there. And it was funny because I was, looking around the room, seeing who was there, and Gonzalez's agent, who I believe represents a handful of players. He's a relatively new agent. He worked with the Bucks in their scouting department, and won the championship with them and all that. I'm not sure when he left the organization, but I'm sure he probably still has ties there and all that. So I'm seeing him running in and out of the room. He's on the phone. I'm like, oh, he's just doing agent stuff. He was probably hearing from his people in Milwaukee about like what the hell was going on, because within minutes we're seeing Turner signs with the Bucks and Yeah, Bucks waive Lillard, and that's obviously what we're here talking about, and a lot of people want to discuss is this Lillard possibility. Big changes with the Celtics across the board here over the last couple of weeks. We're still awaiting the Al Horford decision. I'll hit on a couple of these guys because I'm sure you're familiar with them. We'll start with the guy I'm more familiar with coming over here, and that's Luka Garza. Tremendous college player, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Were you at that Iowa-Syracuse game? I think it was
Was that at
2018.
MSG?
No, it was in Q's.
Oh,
I remember it well because I was really good that year, and they had him, Joe Wieskamp, who was a great college player, Bohannon, who was awesome at the guard spot there. That was a tremendous team, and Q's pushed them, but ended up losing. And he was just so great in that game. And that year, he was National Player of the Year, one of the best players in college. You knew he was a tricky fit translating to the NBA, and I think he got picked in like the 50s to the Pistons. Floated around the G League for a little while and then stuck a little bit with the Wolves, who would use him in like a third string center role. But the reporting is that the Celtics have liked this guy for a while. He's obviously not a replacement for Porzingis, Kornet, any of these guys, but I've always liked his game, pick and pop abilities, post up games, nice. The defense is a real question whether he can play the 5 in this league, but he developed in Minnesota. I'm sure they like the strides that he made, and he's going to get a chance to play the way it looks right now in this front court. He's never really gotten that in his career between Detroit and Minnesota. I'm intrigued here. I actually like this move. I know no one's going to enjoy it because of the guys who are going out the door and how obscure this name is here. But Keita, I think everyone wanted to see him play a little bit more last year than he did. He made some strides, particularly early in the season. Tillman, who knows? I mean, he didn't see the court after November. And then Garza here, along with the rookie Amari Williams. So we'll see if more Flyers, more guys come in this front court to potentially fill out minutes here. But this is a guy that I like. I don't know what your familiarity is with him or how much you like his game, but it's a Flyer. And when you're where the Celtics are, you got to take some Flyers. And I think this one might actually work with the style that they play.
well, I'm excited for him for a couple reasons. Number one, he and Keita together, 55 and 88, very aesthetically pleasing. His contract, you got up on the screen, 55, 5.5, also aesthetically pleasing. I am a huge college basketball fan, so my first thought was kind of like yours. This guy was the best player in the country probably for 2 years at Iowa. And I'm excited to see if any of that's going to translate at all. He really is like an old school big. His footwork is sick. He reads the game at a high level.
And he's so physical, so tough.
Yeah.
Gritty player.
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't know if people realize, Bobby, he was a 44% three-point shooter his last year in college.
Mm-hmm.
He has not really shown that in the league. He hasn't had a chance to play a bunch. But I do wonder if the Celtics can revive that aspect of his game, almost like a reverse Luke Kornet, where with the Celtics, Luke, when he got good was when he stopped shooting threes. Maybe the Celtics can tap into some of that with Garza. But the problem is, I don't know what he's going to give you defensively.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I think that's where the Celtics are just completely bare in the cupboard is rim protection.
Yep. Yeah, he's not a rim protector by any means.
You play him with Keita maybe, but Nimi's not going to play 48 minutes a game, so I don't know where that is really going to come from. Maybe you go super small. I think Luka Garza might be more of a 4 than a 5 in the NBA because of his limitations protecting the rim. But overall,
and they like playing double bigs.
Yeah, and that was really effective last year. I'm just excited. I'm just excited to see him get a chance to develop in this system where the Celtics have done a really good job developing players. And, the best example is the guy Garza is going to try to replace here, which is Kornet.
Yeah, and they've done a good job shaping guys to their mold the way they want their centers to play. Keita, I think you're seeing signs of that over the last couple of years that he's been here. They've put him in handoff positions, and the passing I think has been nice from him. And there's just a lot I'm excited about when it comes to seeing him there. But they have a lot to replace in that front court, clearly, with the guys going out. And I don't know if these players are completely capable of that, at least this year. And if they're not intent on competing this year, and we'll see where this roster goes, it doesn't totally look like it at the moment. this is the kind of front court that could maybe do a soft tank along with some missed games and stuff like that. I don't think that's their intention right now, and I think they'll try to put together some kind of roster that can be competitive, but so far it doesn't look like that's totally the priority this year above the financial things that they're trying to accomplish here. And another guy who came in and filled out the roster yesterday is Josh Minot. And
nice.
Yeah, I got it. I looked it up yesterday.
Yeah. I've called some of his summer league games, so I know that one.
Yeah, and I know you called the game he played a little bit against the Celtics in Minnesota last year. So I'm not totally familiar with him. I remember him vaguely from that game, getting a couple of rim runs and hitting a three. He didn't play a ton in Minnesota. He's still only 22. I look back at the Athletics draft guide that year. He was like their 45th prospect, and that's about where he went in that draft that year out of Memphis. Looks like more of a small ball center than a wing, the way he plays. So what are the Celtics getting here? Is this a guy that could play for them?
I'd say why not, man? He can play. He can play a little bit. He's crazy athletic. It's amazing how Penny Hardaway and the Memphis college team produces all of these crazy athletic guys. Like it feels like every year there are 2-3 dudes from Memphis who end up kicking in the league. Lester Quinones has played in the NBA for a few years now, and I think he finished his career at Memphis. Like they have a ton of guys who come through that program. Minot is I think you're right. He's like, in a weird way, I think he's more suited to play the 5 than Garza is. Just like
athletically, yeah, and he's a rim protector. That's his game defensively.
Yeah, so I don't know. I kind of like the fit. I think you're seeing the makings of a front court. I don't. You said the term soft tank there. It remains to be seen. I'm sure how the beginning of the season goes will have something to do with the decision making.
The verbiage I've shifted from like reset year, gap year. Then it's like, ooh, is this a solid? Tanking's tough. You need to do like the Wizards thing. Yeah, you need to go the Wizards Jazz direction, the tank, or you're holding guys out of games, which I don't think you're going to do. So I hesitate to use that term. But again, it doesn't look like a complete roster right now. And again, maybe these centers that they're bringing in will be better than we totally expect. Or they can mold them into some competitiveness at that position. But right now, they've lost a lot at this position, and these guys that are coming in have not played a lot of NBA basketball. But this guy's 22, and the only way you can develop is to play, and he didn't get a ton of opportunities to play with the Wolves.
Well, yeah, so a couple things. I'm looking back at my board. I've called a Minot game each of the last 2 summer leagues, and maybe I'll get a chance to make that 3 in a row.
That would be cool. I don't expect that because he's done 3, but if he plays, that'd be fun.
I mean, it would be. I'm kind of with you. I don't expect it, but maybe. I have a note on my board here. His nickname is the Lawnmower.
Yeah, so where'd that come from?
I have
on Basketball Reference.
It's a quote that says, "Once I got going, just kept going." So I guess a lawnmower like just keeps going. You
get the automatic one, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So I guess I don't know. Minot, I think he has a high motor. I remember seeing that in the summer league. And again, he's super athletic. And I'll also say this, if you're gonna mine, no pun intended, if you're gonna mine a team's deep bench, a team that's made back-to-back Western Conference Finals and is run by Tim Connolly, who I think is pretty well regarded as an executive in the NBA, I think that's a good team to do it from. Minot and Garza didn't play a whole lot in Minnesota, but that's a good team, and Tim Connolly knows what he's doing. So they had those guys in there for a reason. I'm excited to see them get a chance to develop. And like we said, they're going to get minutes because they're both front court players, and the Celtics just don't have a ton of depth there. So if you're looking at it from like a depth chart perspective in the front court, and I know people who have been rooting for a championship contender since like 2017 are going to maybe vomit at this, but in the front court, Keita, Niang, Garza, Minot, as someone who gets to watch the team every day and learn about these guys and help the fans learn about them in the process, I'm actually excited about it. It's obviously not a championship level front court, but you're gonna get a chance to get a good look at these guys, and then after the gap year, the reset year, whatever you want to call it, after it's over, they can still contribute for you just in a smaller role.
So here's what we got on the Summer League roster, and I guess I should throw Minot's name potentially in here as well. But you're going to see Baylor Shireman, who confirmed that to us. Jordan Walsh as well told us here on the Garden Report that he is going to play Summer League. Miles Norris told me he intended to late in the season. So those three are pretty set in stone. And there's obviously the two rookies, Amari Williams and Max Scholga. A handful of other college guys that they picked up here. Ben Gregg, Aaron Scott, Hayden Gray, Zach Hicks. Not super familiar with any of them. And then throw Kenneth Lofton in here to the front court mix, which just happened over the last handful of hours here. So what are you excited about with this team? You're going to be out at Summer League for a little bit, catching this team play. It's always exciting to see what could happen, who could earn a training camp spot, what strides these guys have made going into the summer. There's a lot on the line for Walsh, obviously. He's going to go through the third one here, which is where you start wondering, is this guy going to stick on? So he's got a lot to play for. Shireman is obviously going to have a much bigger role this year. I'm excited about Norris. I thought he looked tremendous with Maine after they signed him late last year. Huge body and a great shot. Very, very silky, smooth, soft touch on his three-pointer. And he's, potentially a guy that could play this year as well. So up and down this order here, obviously Hope Gonzalez will play too. That seems up in the air after his season ended a week ago. Jrue Peterson, I'd have to imagine won't be on the team this year, just given the roster situation. And he was saying he may or may not play. So I'd imagine we won't see him. But what are you most looking forward to in Vegas, Drew?
Well, a couple things on that. Number one, if Jrue Peterson's not back, that's a bummer for me because I love to tell people who don't watch Celtics games that I'm Jrue Peterson and I'm on the roster, and they will believe it. Number two, Baylor Shireman, his 30 points per game and major highlights will cure my hangover in Vegas. That's for sure. Vegas is a recipe for disaster in terms of a hangover with the heat and the sweat, and then
I will be drinking water.
Yeah, lots of water is necessary, but Baylor Shireman he'll wake you up in a hurry because he's got a serious flair for the highlight. And he's the guy on this roster, right? I mean, it's going to be him and Kenny Lofton, like little two-man action, and they're both going to put up 30 a game maybe in the Summer League. And then I also want to give a quick shout out, just since you mentioned the Maine Celtics, shout out to our guy Phil Pressey, who's the new head coach of the Maine Celtics.
He'll be out there as well.
Guy. One of the nicest dudes on our travel party. I'm excited to see him succeed up in
I wonder if
Maine.
he'll coach it. He's probably in the mix to maybe coach this team. I know Matt Reynolds hasn't done it yet. A lot of the assistants have done it at this point, so they usually try to go with someone new. I think DJ did it last year. Yeah, I feel like pretty much everyone else on the staff has done it. So we'll see. That'll probably come out in the next day or two. But anyone we're not talking about as much on this roster who intrigues you? Amari Williams is huge, by the way. I saw him yesterday. Ginormous. Wingspan, height, giant guy.
Bobby, just based on the conversation we just had about the front court and the lack of depth there, he's the one with the clearest path to playing time right now. I think even more so than Ugo Gonzalez, who was the first-round pick. And by the way, shout out to Gary Washburn, who I think was the first to tweet out that is the correct pronunciation of Ugo. The H is silent, and Adam Silver, of course, drilled it on draft night because he always.
He's always got it down.
He's always got it. I think.
By the way, is it Hansen Yang or is it Yang Hansen?
That's a great question. I actually don't know because I've seen both. I was at the draft and his name was different than everybody else because everyone say it was Baylor Shireman, it would have been B. Shireman or J. Walsh. His was flipped where it said Hansen Y. So the abbreviated name was the second name.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was, I don't even remember. It might have been Young Age, but I'm not sure.
Young's going to be on the jersey.
Because Yao was on the jersey, right?
Yao was on the jersey too, but we said Yao Ming.
Yeah. So I don't know how that's going to work, but I do think Amari Williams or Williams Amari, whatever you want to call him, I think he'll be in the mix to play pretty quickly here. And I don't know. He seems pretty raw. Kentucky guys always do. And I'm not going to tell you I watched a ton, but I've read about it, and people seem to think he's a pretty good passer, got a good feel for the game, and like you said, he's massive. So maybe he's got a chance to play as a rookie.
Yeah, Max Scholga will be exciting too. I hear he can really shoot VCU.
We got another guy from Ukraine, right? Honoring the Speedy Highwood legacy.
Yeah, he's got an interesting story. I don't know if he's going to crack the roster or eventually play. Obviously, he was the 57th pick, but he moved from Ukraine to Spain when he was like 13, played high school basketball in Spain at an academy, came over here to Utah State like last second. It was COVID, so they didn't know if they were going to be able to get him a visa. They went to a bunch of different countries, tried to figure it out, and they eventually got him over there. Kada was playing his last year at Utah State at the time, so they were teammates back then, and he didn't play much. Second year, didn't play a ton, but really morphed into a decent ball handling shooting guard. And that VCU team was pretty good this year, weren't they?
They were really good. They made the tournament. They lost to BYU.
Yeah.
He followed the coach Ryan Odom, who I'm about 90% sure about this, was the coach of UMBC when they beat Virginia. And then he went to Utah State and then got to VCU, and Shulga followed him there. But he's a little older, right? He was 5 years in college.
Yep. Yeah, he'd be 22, 23.
But good, like really good college.
Same with
player.
Williams. He started 4 years at Drexel.
Yeah, so but Williams was Kentucky after that, right?
Yep, Kentucky for the fifth year.
So, I don't know. It remains to be seen. I think Williams, again, is the intriguing one to me because just because of the need for the Celtics in the front court right now.
So that's that. We will wrap it up here with the Lillard conversation we started with. And again, reporting here that the Celtics, Lakers, and Warriors could have some interest in Lillard here. Again, Celtics roster's full at the moment. Don't know if Lillard's going to sign this summer, given that he's going to miss most of this year here. Just waived by the Bucks yesterday. It's stretch provision, which, again, did we ever get any clarity on what the last stretch was here? We were asking in the chat. I don't think anyone came up with it.
Bobby Marks tweeted that it's the biggest stretch in history by far, and maybe the last one was Batum.
That sounds right.
It's hard to keep track of Batum and where he was stretched because it feels like he's played for half the league. By the way, we should mention while we've been doing this, Mike Brown got hired by the Knicks.
I like that fit. I like that a lot for them, especially if they're going to be more of an offensive team. I like some of the stuff he did offensively in Sacramento. Still don't know why Sacramento fired him.
Still don't know why New York fired their coach.
Right.
Doesn't make a whole lot of
sense. These guys are just all trading sides right now. I wonder what Tibbs is going to do this year. I know he did some TV that year. He was off with Minnesota.
Like swimmingly.
Not
supernatural.
Not his ideal role, I'd say. I wonder if the Celtics could bring him in that consulting role that Jeff Van Gundy was in a couple years ago. He was hanging around. I remember seeing him around the facility that year. He was waiting to get hired by the Knicks. So I wouldn't be stunned if that happens at all. I think he's got pretty good ties to Boston as well as New York. Those are kind of his two homes organizationally. So he's going to get paid for 3 more years by the Knicks. And just like you might pay Lillard, or the Bucks might pay Lillard to be here, maybe the Knicks will be paying Tom Thibodeau to be here.
I'd love that. I'd love for Tibbs to come on the broadcast with Scal. I'm sure you remember when he took that shot at Scalabrini.
Scal wasn't even in the room, was he?
Oh yeah, it was awesome. I had to text him. He said his phone was blowing up. I was just glad to hear that his phone works and can still receive text because he doesn't respond to anybody. But yeah, he said his phone was blowing up. It was a money quote. For those who don't know, Tibbs got asked about his time in Boston and what he thinks of the Celtics organization. He just waxed poetic for a solid minute, giving shouted out Jeff Twist, PR maven who's been with the Celtics for over 4 decades.
Going into the Hall of Fame this summer, by the way. Yeah,
Jeff Twist, the Hall of Famer, talking about people in the facility, around the stadium, etc. And then he said the only hole in the franchise is Scalabrini. So, Tibbs. I think Tibbs is he's too deadpan and actually too smart about basketball to work on television. Because I think he probably doesn't have any respect for the people he's working with and their basketball IQ. And he can't fake a smile, but I think there's a lot of Jeff Van Gundy to him, right? And those guys go way back, I think. So maybe he would be a perfect fit for that consultant role. We'd love to have him.
For sure. Yeah, and the Celtics, they've lost some coaches over the last handful of years here now. And Charles Lee's down in Charlotte, and a bunch of guys. Jeff went out to the Clippers and had a huge impact this
Oh, yeah.
season. So I think, there's always room to add more brain power to the bench. And this will be an interesting year for Missoula too, given that they're going to be working with new players and
Very
trying to figure it out
Bobby.
without Tatum. Yeah. And we'll see what happens. Brad said he signed for multiple more seasons now. So I think that put that contract discussion to rest for now. And I feel like he'll get an extension at some point here. We'll hear from him at some point, I'd imagine. But Summer League's up next.
I wouldn't bank on that. Wouldn't bank on that, Bobby. I think he's off the grid for now.
For now, yeah, he's been rounding the globe, I guess, apparently, according to Stevens, talking to coaches and getting some advice. And he might need it, trying to figure out this roster going into next year. And the pieces are still coming together here. Again, more moves to come. The Simons thing, I think I'd keep an eye on that. Niang, is he going to actually play here? They still need to figure out how to get below the second apron, and there's still $19 million over the tax line, which I'd watch for as well. They got to clear some space if they're going to sign Lillard this summer, certainly. So there's another move at least to come here. The Summer League roster will probably be out in the next day or so, and we will have coverage of that out there. The first 3 games of the Summer League we will be in attendance for. I believe Noah's doing all 10 days in Noah fashion, and Jrue's going to pop in for a little bit as well. I'm actually going out to Portugal, Jrue, to see Nemesh Keita's camp after Summer League. He's doing a camp out there for local kids in Lisbon and making his return home. I know he went back at one point last summer after winning the championship. I wonder if he can get the trophy over there. I know he wasn't able to get the trophy over there for that trip.
Dude,
so.
That's going to be fun, man. Good for you. Enjoy that. You ever been to Portugal?
I have not. I'm a big Spain guy, and I'm going to hop over to Spain too over there. Love Madrid. Love the Gonzalez draft pick for that reason as well. So quick trip. Going to go see Keita's camp. We'll cover that and then try to see some people who knew Gonzalez while he was playing at Real Madrid, because I think he's going to be in Vegas. He told me the other day whether he's playing or not. So, again, this is what you get excited about, Jrue. Like, it's not a championship contender anymore necessarily here, but some guys get some chances to play. The bar is going to be low in terms of expectations, so it's going to be so easy to surpass that for them. I remember the year Hayward went down, which there's some similarities here. Obviously, timing's a little different in the injury and all that, but when he went down that year, everyone was like, all right, they're screwed. Pack it in. They're not going anywhere this year. And that's team still had a lot of talent, especially the young guys who were there who stepped up. But they went to the East Finals that year, which no one would have imagined. And so this team still has Jaylen, still has Derek, still has Pritchard, who's going to jump into a much bigger role this year. I know the center thing's very uncertain. But you said it at the top of the show, right? You wouldn't be surprised if they're top 6?
I expect it. I do. I know I have green colored glasses, and for my sake, frankly, all of our sakes covering the team, Bobby, it's just more fun when they're good. But I do think you're onto something there. This will be my first year covering the team where they're not favorites to win it all. I think it'll be the first time really since that year you're talking about that they're not at least a contender coming into the season. And a lot of the success from this season will feel like a win, almost like gravy. And I hate the term playing with house money because I think it's overused, but anything like any real success for the Celtics this year will be fun because it will be perhaps unexpected. But that being said, I don't expect them to be out of the playoffs or even in the play-in. I think Jaylen's going to have a massive year. I think D. White's going to average more than 20. Pritchard's going to continue his ascent. Hauser's going to play a big role, and they'll piece it together in the front court enough to, in a weak Eastern Conference, still be a top 6 seed. I still think that. Because we're talking about, Bobby, the other teams we talk about potentially leapfrogging them are so unproven, right? Like, I think Detroit's going to be really good this year.
That Beasley thing really threw them for a loop, though.
Is the mojo going to be great around them? Missing Beasley, he was so important to them. Assuming he'll be gone, we still don't know. But
Ivy's coming back, who wasn't there for that stretch run. Yeah,
but
I don't know what's going to happen there.
We think they're going to be good. I'm with that, but it's hypothetical that they're going to leap the Celtics. The Hawks, like, we both love their offseason, and we think they're going to be really
I've
good,
loved the Hawks for like 5 years, and it's never happened.
I know. You're not the only person who feels that way. The Magic, we think they're going to take a big leap, but it hasn't happened yet. So those like the Sixers, like who the hell knows?
Cleveland, even the one thing with
Yeah.
Cleveland is when you have a loss like that or multiple playoff losses like that, and Garland's got a big injury right now, you've seen teams go the other way. And even though the talent's still there, they took a tough L this last postseason, and then certainly the year before that. So sometimes it just doesn't translate to the following year if the belief is lost a little bit or something like that. I think they're going to be pretty good, but who knows? And it's definitely a wide open East. I don't like what the Bucks have done, certainly as well.
No.
Pacers are missing Halliburton. That looked like they had a chance to rule the conference potentially, and they just lost Turner as well. So yeah, they're going to go into this year with the intention of competing, I think. And where it goes from there, we will see. By the way, one more question before we wrap this. Do you think we'll see Tatum this year?
Before we started making all these moves, I thought maybe. I was drinking the Kool-Aid, which was partially served up by your colleague Noah, about the, getting the surgery quickly after the actual injury and how that will help with recovery. And I was like, oh, great. He's going to be back in no time. And I've kind of cooled on that a little bit. I think that is correct, that reporting, but it's probably a matter of,
cautiousness.
Maybe and saving a little bit of time on the back end as opposed to having his Achilles be fully healed by the time the season starts, So I sort of think that the plan for him is to sit out all year. I talked with a doctor who isn't a specialist in Achilles, but he's a surgeon, and he said it'd be crazy for him to play this year. So I don't know. When I thought that the team would be more similar to what it was last season in terms of the construction before we made all these moves, I thought maybe we could, hang around in the mix for a top 4 seed without him, and then at the All-Star break he'll be ready and we'll make another run at it in a wide open conference. Now I'm a little more lukewarm on that, and I kind of feel like he's gonna sit this year, but I don't have any inside info on that.
He's Jrue Carter. You guys have a show coming up at 4 today, you said?
Yeah, I got to go shower and get over there. The off season, check it out on YouTube. You can join the chat. I don't know if we're gonna have Bia on the show like Bobby's gonna have on this show.
Yeah,
too. Yeah, but
I'm really looking forward to that. I thought she was starting to show some skepticism with what was going on, but it was actually her curious about what Brad's gonna pull out of the hat. So
it was bait for you to respond and for her to get on this show. Everybody wants to come on the show, and I understand.
She is a giant Celtics fan. She might be top 5 most famous Celtics fans, top 10 maybe.
That's a pretty good idea for a podcast for later on in the season after all this stuff quiets down.
Who are the most famous Celtics fan?
Bobby, when you have her on the show, just give me a call, and I'd like to jump on for a few minutes. I'll use this same link, and I'll try it, and I'll jump in.
Feel free. Everyone's welcome. Yeah, we're going to get Bia on the Garden Report soon if anyone missed it. Again, Jrue Carter, appreciate you stopping by. Love the work you do, and he'll be on some lacrosse broadcasts coming up over the next handful of days here as well. So always look out for him on ESPN. You still doing SportsCenter these days too?
A little bit. I'm not sure about the rotation this year. I did a bunch last summer. I actually pulled an all-nighter after we won the championship and drove straight to Bristol after that. So I don't know. This stuff's always changing over at the Worldwide later, so I don't ask too many questions. But we got a PLL All-Star game this weekend, so stay tuned for that.
And again, a shout out to our sponsor Prize Picks here. Go check them out. A lot of great games going on still, even with basketball and hockey over. Love the women's game. Love the baseball going on right now as well. Get it over to Fenway at some point. See some games going on over there. And again, more fun when you use CLNS. Play 5, get 50 on your first lineup over there. Prize Picks, run your game. And of course, check out all our channels right now. Pat's training camp is right around the corner. So check out the great coverage over on our Patriots Press Pass channel. Subscribe for an inside look at the rookie introductions yesterday over here on Celtics All Access. Some great footage from our videographer, Rich LeMay, as well as interviews with all the rookies yesterday up there as well. Check out Bruins Rinkside. They just drafted a top 10 prospect, and I guess he was over showing off at the facility there as well. So some coverage of that available now as well. And whenever news breaks, and we'll see what happens with Horford here today, tomorrow, whenever that happens, we will be live instantly to react to whatever ends up happening here. Maybe there'll even be a surprise Lillard announcement over the next couple of weeks here. So turn on your notifications for that. Thanks again to Jrue. Thanks for everybody who watched here live on our YouTube channel. And we will be back when news breaks. It's the holiday weekend, so I think everyone's going to get away a little bit here. And hopefully there won't be any phones blowing up on the 4th, Drew, as tends to happen sometimes. But I will be ready. I'm on call, even on my little mini trip I'm about to take if something happens. So I always get you guys covered. And that's it for us here today. We'll keep track of all the news that keeps happening over on clnsmedia.com, and we will talk to you soon. Peace.
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to
Same.
feel that
Same
way.
to you.
Let's fly Al over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke hour early. We're not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke